Imagine you have, I don't know, endless billions in cash, right?
Right. Basically a tech giant's dream scenario.
Exactly. And you want to build the world's most advanced artificial intelligence facility. So you secure the chips, you buy all this land, and then,
Then you go to plug it in.
yeah, you go to plug this massive operation in, and the local power grid operators look at you and say, well, no.
Which is wild.
It's crazy. They basically say, if the grid gets stressed,
Right.
we are going to actively turn your multi-billion-dollar supercomputer off, just so, regular people can keep their lights on.
Yeah, and that isn't some dystopian science fiction hypothetical.
No, it's not.
That was a real regulatory framework proposed back in August of 2026.
Which, that completely shatters the way we usually think about modern infrastructure, right?
Absolutely, because, we've operated for decades on this assumption of infinite linear growth.
Right, just build more.
Exactly. If there's more demand for power or shipping or data, the solution has always been to just build more capacity, pave another lane on the highway, lay another cable.
But the reality we are seeing in the data is that we are hitting these hard physical walls. Like, we can no longer just build our way out of scarcity.
You really can't.
And that is exactly what we are bringing you into today. Welcome to this deep dive.
I'm glad to be here.
We've got a fascinating stack of sources for you. Specifically, a highly detailed weekly intelligence report covering August 10th through the 16th, 2026.
It's a dense one, too.
It really is.
Yeah.
And our mission today is to look past those isolated daily news headlines that you might have scrolled past that week and uncover this massive hidden structural pattern.
A pattern that is quietly changing the entire operating system of the modern world.
Exactly. Okay, let's unpack this.
Yeah.
Because the central operational question of our time has fundamentally shifted, hasn't it?
It has. For a century, the question was simply, can we build enough to connect everything?
Right. Just get everyone online.
Yeah. But today, the question is totally different. It's when capacity inevitably becomes constrained, who remains connected, who gets disconnected first, and crucially, who retains the physical and financial ability to reconnect afterward.
Okay, wait. That is a total reversal of how global systems are supposed to work.
Completely.
You're saying we are moving from a world trying to eliminate scarcity to a world that is quietly drafting the rules for how to manage a state of permanent constraint.
Yes. And going back to that AI power switch example you started with, this is playing out right now between artificial intelligence and the U.S. power grid.
Right, the PJM grid.
Yeah, it's the starkest illustration in the entire report. Look, at PJM, they are a major regional transmission organization.
They coordinate the wholesale electricity across, a huge chunk of the eastern U.S.?
Exactly, a massive area. And in mid-August 2026, they were staring down a projected supply shortfall of 6.8 gigawatts.
Wait, 6.8 gigawatts. I want to make sure we contextualize that for a second.
It's a lot.
Because a single gigawatt can power roughly 750,000 homes. So a 6.8 gigawatt shortfall means the grid is essentially missing the power equivalent for millions of households.
Right. That is not a minor accounting error.
No. So what's driving that? Because it's not like the population suddenly spiked overnight.
No, it's not a growing population. It's the explosive power demands of AI data centers.
Oh, okay.
The speed at which this new technological demand is hitting the grid is, frankly, entirely outpacing the physical grid's ability to permit, build, and connect new power plants.
So the tech is moving faster than the concrete can drive.
Basically, yeah. So PJM proposed a new framework. They suggested creating this registry where massive data centers and large power loads would actually be placed on a list to be curtailed.
Curtailment, meaning forcibly cut off.
Right. Cut off before regular household demand during time of severe grid stress.
Wow. So instead of just figuring out how to give the tech companies more power, the grid operators are spending their time, designing the emergency off switch.
What's fascinating here is that they are establishing a hierarchy of priority.
Right.
They are recognizing that they cannot eliminate the scarcity of power fast enough, so they have to manage the constraint by shifting these massive tech loads to their own backup power during emergencies.
The analogy that comes to mind here, and I think the report touches on this, is that capital moves like a sports car, but physical infrastructure moves like a bulldozer.
Oh, that's a perfect way to put it.
Right. Because a tech giant can wire $1 billion to fund a new AI facility in a fraction of a second. But getting the environmental permits, acquiring the land, physically stringing up the heavy copper wire for the transmission lines, that takes years.
Sometimes a decade.
Right. And the report calls this the mismatch between financial scalability and physical scalability. So how is the market reacting to that mismatch?
By fundamentally changing its behavior. The tech capital realizes it can't just patiently wait for the public utility bulldozer to catch up to its sports car.
They don't have the time.
Exactly. AI compute is evolving in real time, so it's no longer just acting as a, quote, consumer of power on the public grid. It is trying to become its own priority class.
Meaning what exactly?
Meaning, because public grids are too slow and burdened with protecting residential consumers, the massive tech capital is attempting to vertically integrate its own physical infrastructure.
Which brings us to NVIDIA and SB Energy.
Right.
The report mentions them negotiating a multi-billion-dollar investment, something like up to $3 billion in direct investment for a giant dedicated open AI data center in Ohio.
Yeah, a massive undertaking.
But there's a catch there, right? Like a pretty significant one.
Here's a massive catch. So initially, there were reports that NVIDIA might provide up to $250 billion in broader financial guarantees for this overarching plan.
$250 billion, that's absurd.
Right, but that week, we saw them scaling that back to under $120 billion for the initial phases.
Oh, wow. Why the drop?
Well, what this tells us, mechanically, is that capital is desperately trying to secure dedicated land and dedicated power loops, so they never face that PJM off switch.
Oh, I see.
But even with near infinite money, tech companies do not want to take on unlimited physical infrastructure risk. Building a private power grid is incredibly hard.
Yeah. I mean, they're software companies, not utility companies.
Exactly.
But the fact that they are even trying shows how severe this constraint is. They're basically trying to build their own private lanes on the highway so they never have to sit in public traffic.
Spot on.
But this friction isn't just happening with, like, invisible electrons on a power grid. It's happening with massive physical assets, too.
Right, the supply chains.
Yeah, if we look at the global map, capital is running into the exact same physical wall in the Strait of Hormuz.
Which is one of the most critical maritime choke points in the world, primarily for energy transport. Historically, before recent geopolitical conflicts escalated, you would see somewhere between 130 and 140 massive commercial ships passing through that narrow body of water every single day.
But the data from the intelligence report for the week of August 10th shows a drastic change.
A huge drop.
The volume dropped to single digits, and then specifically on August 16th, according to maritime tracking data, exactly 0 ships passed through.
Zero.
0. Literally none.
And this is where we have to be careful with how we analyze the data.
How so?
Because the immediate reaction is to look at that 0 and ask, well, is the strait open or is it closed?
Right, it's a binary question.
But the report points out that this is a flaw of binary thinking. It's not about open or closed. It represents a systemic shift to a concept they call connection persistence stress.
Connection persistence stress. Okay, that sounds a bit academic.
Yeah.
What does that actually mean for, like, a cargo ship sitting in the water?
It means that the theoretical right to access the strait exists. The physical water is there.
A ship could technically sail through.
Technically, yes. But the ability to maintain a stable, continuous passage over a period of time cannot be guaranteed. The state of the connection is constantly fluctuating based on threats, military presence, insurance rates.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
So it's not a wall, it's a flickering light bulb.
Exactly.
But practically speaking, if I'm running a global supply chain, a shipping lane behaving like a bridge that randomly closes on Tuesday and opens on Thursday is almost worse than it being permanently closed, right?
It's an operational nightmare.
Yeah. How do you even plan for that? You can't run a tight, just-in-time manufacturing schedule if you don't know if your critical components are going to actually get through.
You really can't. Being physically able to pass through is a completely different reality from maintaining stable passage.
Right.
If you cannot guarantee persistence, you are forced into making incredibly expensive decisions. You have to route your ships thousands of miles out of the way around the Cape of Good Hope.
Which takes way longer.
Much longer. You have to buy exorbitant war risk insurance premiums. You have to stockpile massive amounts of inventory in local warehouses just in case a shipment is delayed.
So the costs just compound.
Right. The pressure doesn't just vanish because the strait happens to be quiet for an afternoon. The unpredictability ripples out and fundamentally changes the entire cost structure of global trade.
Okay, so we're seeing infrastructure stress from technological speed with AI,
Yeah.
and we're seeing it from geopolitical friction with shipping lanes.
Yeah.
But then the report takes us to Europe.
Yes, the water crisis.
Right, where we see this idea of fragile physical networks get attacked from a completely different angle. It wasn't geopolitics or AI, it was a single environmental factor simultaneously attacking multiple, totally separate infrastructure systems.
It's a perfect storm.
Yeah, I'm talking about the European heat and water crisis from that same August week.
The cascading effects here were just staggering to read about. Europe experienced severe heat and drought, which caused the water levels in the Rhine River to drop drastically. Now, the Rhine isn't just a scenic waterway,
Right, it's a huge industrial corridor.
Exactly. It is a massive, heavy-duty logistical artery for European industry.
And when the water drops, it's not like the ships just drive slower. They physically can't carry their full loads without their hulls scraping the bottom of the riverbed.
Right, they get stuck.
So the report mentions major chemical giants, like Covestro, having to declare force majeure on certain products because they simply couldn't move them.
Which is a huge deal in the supply chain.
Oh, massive.
Yeah.
So by August 15th, a huge amount of chemical and industrial cargo had to be shifted off the river barges and onto railways and diesel trucks.
And while the logistics network was failing because of the low water, at the exact same time, down in France, the energy network was failing because of the temperature of the water.
Right, because nuclear power plants rely heavily on river water to cool their reactors. Let's actually pause and explain the mechanics of that, because I think it's crucial. How does a hot river stop a nuclear reactor?
Good question. So a nuclear plant generates immense heat to create steam, which turns turbines to make electricity.
Right.
To cool that steam back down into water, the plant constantly draws in massive amounts of cool water from a nearby river, runs it through condensers, and then pumps it back out into the river.
Makes sense.
But there are strict environmental regulations. If the river is already experiencing a severe heat wave, pumping even warmer water back into it will literally boil the downstream aquatic ecosystem.
Oh, wow. So the fish and the plant life will just die.
Basically, yes.
Yeah.
So to protect the river, the plants have to power down. That week, France was looking at a curtailment of up to 9.4 gigawatts of nuclear power capacity, strictly because the rivers were too hot to use as a coolant.
Here's where it gets really interesting to me. When you look at those two events together, water is essentially moonlighting as three different critical assets at once.
Oh, absolutely.
Right. It is a physical logistics highway for the cargo ships on the Rhine. It is an industrial energy coolant for the nuclear reactors in France. And obviously, it is a basic life resource for human beings and agriculture.
Which proves these are not just, isolated weather stories. The report uses this to demonstrate what a multi-constraint environment looks like.
A multi-constraint environment.
Right. A single physical input climate pressure is putting massive stress on multiple operational membranes simultaneously.
So they're all failing at the same time.
Yeah. The logistics membrane, the energy membrane, and the civic membrane are all being squeezed by the exact same bottleneck at the exact same time.
Okay, if I'm listening to this, I might be feeling a bit overwhelmed, right?
It is a lot to take in.
Because we've got AI power shortages, vital shipping lanes effectively shutting down, rivers drying up, and nuclear plants throttling down. How do the intelligence analysts actually map all of this out without just throwing their hands up in despair?
They use a specific framework.
Right, the report uses two analytical concepts to track this: MGF and TGF.
Yeah.
Let's break those down into plain English.
It's actually a very useful framework. MGF stands for membrane gradient field.
Okay, membrane. Why are they borrowing terminology from a high school biology textbook to talk about supply chains?
I know, it sounds weird at first, but it is the perfect physical analogy.
Mm-hmm.
Think about a membrane in biology like a cell wall.
Okay.
It is semi-permeable. It is designed to let certain things pass through, like nutrients, while blocking others.
Right.
That is exactly what a shipping port or a power grid or a river does. They are operational membranes designed to filter and pass capacity.
Got it.
But when pressure hits them, they become bottlenecks. So MGF simply describes the area where pressure, constraints, and friction are accumulating.
Okay. So the 6.8 gigawatt power shortfall for AI, that is an MGF.
Yes.
The dangerously low water level on the Rhine, that is an MGF. It's the diagnosis of the physical stress on the barrier.
Exactly. It's the pressure.
Okay, so MGF is the pressure building up against the system's wall.
Mm-hmm.
Then what is TGF?
TGF stands for transition gradient field. If MGF is the pressure, TGF is how the system responds to that pressure.
A reaction.
Right. It represents the actions taken to redistribute the load, compensate, or change state. When PJM proposes a curtailment registry to cut off data centers, that policy is a PGF.
Okay.
When Covestro panics and shifts their chemicals from river barges to fleets of diesel trucks, that is a TGF.
So MGF is the problem, TGF is the reaction.
Hmm.
But I want to push back on this a little bit because earlier you said we are moving from eliminating scarcity to managing constraint.
Right.
If Covestro successfully moves its chemicals to trucks, didn't they solve the problem? I mean, they got their product to market. The pressure is gone for them.
It is solved for them individually and temporarily, but it is not solved for the system.
What do you mean?
This is perhaps the most important realization in the entire analysis. The existence of a system response, a TGF, does not mean the underlying pressure has been reduced. Moving massive amounts of industrial cargo from a boat to a truck doesn't make the cargo magically disappear. It simply moves the burden.
So the stress just goes somewhere else?
Exactly. Now you have suddenly overwhelmed the local road network with heavy trucks. You've spiked the demand for local diesel fuel. You've exhausted the supply of truck drivers.
Oh, I see. It's like squeezing a water balloon.
Yes.
Right. The water doesn't leave the balloon, it just bulges out somewhere else. The total volume of stress is still entirely contained within the system.
That is the exact mechanism. The total volume of stress hasn't changed. The report defines this as the critical difference between pressure reduction and pressure allocation.
Okay, reduction versus allocation.
Right. We are not seeing pressure reduction globally. The total demand for energy is not decreasing. The total volume of global freight is not decreasing. The heat in the climate is not decreasing.
It's just getting shuffled around.
Exactly. What we are seeing everywhere is pressure allocation. We are just shuffling the burden to different parts of the system, hoping the new area can hold the weight.
And we see this exact same pressure allocation strategy being used geopolitically too with critical minerals.
We do.
Because the report spends time analyzing the Democratic Republic of Congo, the DRC, and their copper and cobalt processing. What is the constraint happening there?
Well, for a very long time, the global power dynamic regarding minerals was all about who physically dug the raw materials out of the ground. The report calls this raw material control.
Right. Who owns the mine?
Exactly. But recently, the DRC has shifted its strategy. They implemented export restrictions on raw concentrates.
Let's clarify that for a second. What is a raw concentrate and why restrict it?
Sure, when you mine copper or cobalt, it comes out of the earth mixed with rock and dirt.
Right. It's just a big chunk of earth.
Yeah, a concentrate is the first step, crushing it down to a powder that has a higher percentage of the metal, but it still isn't pure.
Okay.
Historically, foreign companies would buy this raw concentrate on the cheap, ship it out of the DRC, and do all the high-value, high-tech refining in their own countries.
So keeping all the profit.
Right. And the DRC realized they were losing all the economic upside. So they aren't trying to stop the global supply of cobalt entirely. They are restricting the export of the raw stuff to force foreign companies to build the advanced refineries inside the DRC borders.
Oh, wow. They're transitioning to what the report calls processing gateway control.
Precisely. They are using their position as a bottleneck to mandate access conditions.
Like a toll booth.
Exactly. If you want our cobalt for your electric vehicle batteries, you have to build a processing plant here. You have to hire our workers. You have to transfer your technology to us.
So they are actively squeezing the water balloon to their own advantage.
Very much so.
They're using access conditionality not to reduce the pressure of global demand, but to capture more of the value for themselves. It's another form of allocating the pressure of the system.
It is a brilliant, albeit disruptive, strategic move to manage their own local constraints by leveraging global desperation for minerals.
Okay, I want to stop and address you, the listener, directly for a moment. Because if you are hearing all of this, if all these systems, the power grid, the global supply chains, the rivers, the critical minerals, if they are all under this immense squeezing pressure, you are probably wondering something.
Yeah, why isn't everything on fire?
Exactly. Why hasn't your daily life completely ground to a halt? Why did August 2026 feel, mostly normal for the average person just going to the grocery store or turning on their computer?
It's a great question, and the analysts address it directly. They call this the silences in the report.
The silences.
Yeah, it's the phenomenon where what isn't happening is actually the most revealing data point.
How so?
Everyday life feels mostly normal right now because there are massive, invisible intermediate layers that are absorbing the shock before it hits the end consumer.
Okay, what kind of layers are we talking about? Give us the mechanics of how this stress is being hidden from us.
Think about corporate balance sheets, for one.
Oh.
When a shipping company has to route around the Strait of Hormuz, it costs them millions of dollars extra in fuel and time.
Right.
Right now, many of those giant corporations are eating that cost out of their profit margins rather than instantly doubling the price of goods on the shelf because they don't want to lose market share.
So the balance sheet is a shock absorber.
Exactly. Or think about the diesel generators for the AI data center.
Right, the backup power.
Yes. The data center gets cut off by the public grid, but they fire up massive industrial diesel backup generators to keep the servers humming.
Yeah.
The consumer never notices a drop in their AI service.
Because the diesel took the hit.
Exactly. Another fascinating layer is parametric insurance.
Parametric insurance. How does that act as a shock absorber?
So traditional insurance pays out after an assesses physical damage, which, takes months.
Yeah, for
Parametric insurance pays out instantly if a specific trigger is met. For example, if the water level in the Rhine drops below a certain centimeter mark for 3 days, the policy automatically wires millions of dollars to the affected chemical company. Instantly. And that instant cash injection allows the company to immediately rent those expensive fleets of trucks we talked about.
Wow.
The logistics keep moving because the financial instrument absorbed the shock of the environmental constraint.
But the underlying terrifying reality here is that corporate balance sheets, diesel reserves, and insurance pools are finite, right?
They are very finite.
They're not infinite resources. What happens when the shock absorbers wear out?
That introduces the final and perhaps most critical analytical hypothesis from the entire report: reconnection capacity.
Reconnection capacity.
Yes, this is the concept that the analysts believe will define the next era of global infrastructure. Reconnection capacity is the ability of an entity to move to an alternative path after being disconnected from the primary system and later return to a viable connected state.
Unpack the inequality of that for me, because it sounds like you're saying that surviving this new era isn't just about avoiding getting disconnected, it's about whether you can afford the bounce back.
That is exactly what it means.
Walk us through a real-world scenario of reconnection capacity.
Sure. Let's go back to the power grid and the AI data centers.
Okay.
If you are a trillion-dollar tech giant building an AI facility and the public grid cuts you off during a heat wave, your reconnection capacity is almost absolute.
Because you have the money.
Right. You have the capital to build a dedicated microgrid. You have acres of battery storage. You might even have independent power purchase agreements with local solar farms.
Right, you're fine.
You just flip a digital switch, your private infrastructure takes over, and your business keeps operating. But what if you are a medium-sized manufacturing plant on that same grid?
Oh, man.
Or a small local business? Or just an average household?
You don't have a microgrid. You just go dark. Your machines stop running, your inventory spoils, your business loses money. Right.
Exactly. You lack both the capital and the physical architecture to seamlessly switch to an alternative. And the exact same inequality applies to global logistics.
How so?
Well, massive multinational shipping conglomerates can afford to reroute entire supply chains away from the Strait of Hormuz.
Right.
Or they can charter emergency air freight when the Rhine River dries up. They just pay the massive premium.
But the smaller guys can't.
Right. Smaller regional players simply cannot absorb a 300% increase in transport costs. They lose their connection to the global market, and they might not have the financial strength to ever reconnect. They just go bankrupt.
Which means we're looking at a future where the dividing line in society isn't just about who is rich and who is poor in a traditional sense.
No, it's not.
It is about who has backups. Reconnection inequality.
Yes.
The next great divide is about who has the private architecture in place to survive, being disconnected from the failing public system.
And that is the structural pattern that the data from the week of August 10th revealed. We are seeing similar design pressures appearing across entirely independent domains.
Right.
AI power grids, maritime shipping routes, climate impacts on rivers, mineral processing in Africa. The global system is quietly acknowledging that it is no longer confident it can keep everyone connected all the time.
Wow.
So the unseen architecture being built right now is this hierarchy of priority.
So what does this all mean for us?
That is the big question.
We started this deep dive looking at a stack of intelligence on data center regulations, empty shipping lanes, dry rivers, and mineral export bans. On the surface, if you were just reading the news, they look like a random assortment of daily headings, right?
Land connected.
But under the surface, when you connect the dots, the shared structural pattern is undeniable. We are fundamentally moving from a world focused on fixing scarcity, just paving more lanes on the highway, to a world designing the brutal rules for managing constrained capacity. We're figuring out how to manage the traffic jams when we realize no more roads can possibly be built.
And the crucial takeaway is that the illusion of normalcy we enjoy right now is entirely dependent on those hidden shock absorbers we discussed.
The insurance, the balance sheets.
Right. As those corporate balance sheets wear thin and alternative routes get clogged, the true cost of pressure allocation is going to become highly visible in our everyday lives.
Which leaves us with a reality where merely having access to something doesn't mean you get to keep it when the systemic pressure spikes. The rules of the road are changing entirely, shifting from a guarantee of service to a condition of service.
Which is why the most important thing to watch isn't whether a specific shortage gets solved next week.
Right.
The real question this report leaves us with is this. In a world where managing constrained capacity becomes as important as eliminating scarcity, who decides the operational priority and who retains the capacity to reconnect?
A profound and slightly unsettling thought to keep your eyes open for as these hidden constraints inevitably start to touch our daily lives. Thank you so much for joining us on this deep dive. We'll see you next time.